Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with the 9th update for my Panda palette, and as you can see I decided to put on some Halloween makeup today. It is the 31st as I'm filming this. I'm going to film this just a few hours before it goes up, and I thought I would have some fun because obviously with everything going on I have no plans for Halloween this year. In general there's not really much going on, especially here in Europe. On Halloween, but especially this year there's absolutely nothing, so I thought it would be fun just to do some Halloween makeup just for me to get a bit festive today, and that's why I look like this. But anyway, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. But let's just jump into what my palette looked like last month. So last month, after I posted my update, I did repress my palette. I have a video up on that as well, but I'm gonna start by inserting the picture of what my palette looked like before I repressed it, so how it looked like last update. And then as you can see, I'm gonna put up a picture as well of what it looked like when it was repressed. But what I basically changed was I created a Franken shade with the kind of dark brown that is up in the right hand corner, and I Franken that with a skin toned color to create more of a transition shade for me. And this is what it turned out like, and while I was on that I also repressed the highlighter shade just to make it easier to use. And yeah, so that is where I was when I first started using this palette this month, and I'm gonna show you where I am now. So this is what my palette looks like right now. There is a lot of difference this month, and I'm obviously gonna go through every shade in order as I always do, but this is what the palette looks like now. So as always, I have the picture comparison up in the corner, but the first shade is this one right here, which is the highlighter shade, and as you can see it is completely gone now. I did repress it and it basically filled up the whole pan again, and it wasn't super thin, but this is a color that I have used so much over the last month. I use it both as a brow bone highlight mainly, as well as a highlighter on my face a few times as well. It worked really well, especially when I mix it with this darker shade, and that's how I got a lot of use out of this shade. And I did have a goal over the last month to reheat pan on this shade after I repressed it, and obviously I exceeded that very well because it is completely gone, and I'm really excited to have another shade gone in this palette. And it wasn't my goal or anything to finish it, but I am really excited that it is gone because we are approaching the end of the year and I feel like there is still a lot of product in here, and I am starting to get a bit disheartened about how much is left in this palette. But I mean, this one here is like a Franken shade, and I feel like I can still finish up a few more things before the end of the year. But I was really excited to have another finished shade in the last month. And that shade I've used 27 times before using it up, so as you can see I used it almost every single day over the last month. The next shade is the gold in the palette, and I haven't used this too much. I've only reached for it 3 times, but there is a slight difference, especially in the top half of this pan. I just didn't focus on this because I do have a bronzer shade in my Pando's eyeshadows, and as I mentioned before, this is kind of the secondary product to that project because I feel like I want to focus on those shades more than these. So that bronzer shade took priority over this shade, and that's why I only have 3 uses, but I do have this on my eyes today. So with this look I majority used this palette. I pulled a few other things like a dark kind of blackish brown and things like that, but majority of the shades are from this palette. So I do have this on my lid together with the shade that is next to it, which I will talk about in a second, but this gold, like I said, I used only 3 times. So let's go ahead and talk about the next shade, which is the other one that I had a goal on for the last month, and I wanted to finish this shade up, and as you can see I was able to do so. I actually finished this shade up today, and I did put this kind of on the inner half of my eyelids, but this is a shade that I have been using as an inner corner highlight for majority of the year, and I feel like almost every single time I've done my makeup I have had this on my inner corner. And this one I reached for 22 times over the last month, so quite a lot, and I was expecting it to take quite a long time, and I did, like I said, finish up today, so it was very last minute. And usually, like I said, I only put it on my inner corner, but I decided to put it on my lids just to get a bit more use out of it today and finish it up because I knew that I had maybe 2 more uses as an inner corner highlight, so I just wanted to use it on a larger area today, so I was able to reach my goal before this update. So yeah, again, I'm super excited to have another empty pan. So I have finished up 3 eyeshadows in total in this palette, which is really good, and I'm getting more hopeful now that I will be able to get at least majority of this palette finished by the end of the year. The next shade is one that I have done a surprising amount of damage to. So this is the shade that I combined with a lighter shade to create the Franken shade, which we're going to talk about later. So when I did scrape that out, I kind of tried to scrape it out evenly, and hopefully you can see that in the before picture. I did get like a tiny baby pan on the kind of side of the like kind of genuine pan, and that's when I decided to stop scraping for this, because when I do scrape eyeshadow out, I don't really like hitting pan on it because I feel like that's cheating. So I usually try to do it evenly to create an even dip rather than digging out a pan. But as you can see, in general, I have done a lot of damage to this eyeshadow, and I have reached for this a surprising amount of times. I actually reached for this 13 times over the last month, and it's been a go-to shade for me because originally I didn't feel like I would be able to use that up because I don't reach for those dark browns a lot, but I have learned to really appreciate these type of shades. And after I decided to not focus on this kind of cooler brown down here, I decided to just put all my focus into this one. I feel a bit more hopeful that I can at least use up the majority of this before the end of the year, and that's why I stepped up my usage game on this a little bit over the last month. So like I said, the next shade is this cooler dark brown down here, and I haven't used it at all. I kind of completely stopped worrying about that. Since started tallying these 4 months ago, I only used that shade once in total in 4 months, so it is just a shade that I don't really care about because these are way too similar, and I would rather have a shade that I can get majority of pan on, or like kind of use up as much as possible, than kind of getting a decent amount of use out of both of them, if that makes sense. So I have not touched this shade at all. The next shade is this kind of purpley shade down here, and I have used this a few times again. It wasn't my focus shade over the last month because I had a lot of other purpose in my panels eyeshadows again, and this is a completely different tone, but I was a bit worn out of this after last month update because last month my goal was to pan on it, which I obviously did, but I only reached for this 4 times, and I have actually really enjoyed using this as a crease shade. I know it is a satin or kind of a shimmer shade, but the shimmer isn't too intense, so it does work as a transition shade, and as long as you pair it with some other mattes to tone down the shimmeriness of it. So that's how I've used this majority of the times, and I really enjoy it that way actually, because on the lids it's a bit too dark for me and a bit too kind of lackluster. So using it in my crease has been really helpful, and that's, like I said, how I got majority of use out of this shade over the last month. Then the next shade in the palette is this Franken shade that I created. So if you haven't seen my video where I kind of created this shade, I used Tempera from the Modern Renaissance palette and mixed with this dark brown up here and created this kind of taupey transition shade, and my goal was to reheat pan on this, or not reheat pan but hit pan on that Franken shade over the last month, and hopefully, as you can see, I do have quite a significant pan. The product is quite thin, but it's not overly thin, so I think it might still take the whole year to finish up. Since it turned out a bit more cool tone than I expected, I can't use it with every single look, but it is a really beautiful tone, and it's kind of the perfect deepness for me because like I said, this one before was too dark, and it went out slightly lighter color, which I did get, and I did use this 23 times over the last month, so quite a lot. So I did start a lot of my looks with this shade, apart from the times where I'm going for something more warm toned, but I, like I said, was padding a lot of like bronzes, and it was more of a cool tone bronze, and then the purples and a kind of turquoisey blue over the last month. So this one went with most of those looks because none of them are really warm toned. I do have one warm toned kind of transition shade, which I did use a few times as well, but this one was one that I focused a lot on, and I think that's why I was able to get such a decent amount of pan in just 1 month. Then we have the final shade in the palette, which is this kind of dark highlighter shade down here. I did use this 20 times over the last month, and again, it's majority of those times we're mixing it with this lighter shade as a highlighter. I don't love these on the lids. I think they're really beautiful as more of a neutral or like a more kind of natural makeup day, but I haven't been going for those much this year, and even though we've been inside in quarantine, I used to taken this time to play with makeup and focus on my project pan items, and since I've been panning so many eyeshadows, a lot of those looks have been eyeshadow focused, so that's why I haven't reached for this shade much on my lid, because pairing it with a lot of kind of really intense shades just make this look really lackluster, and that's kind of why this has been used as a face highlighter mainly. With this one, I don't really use it on my cheekbones specifically because it is a little bit too deep for that, especially now when this highlighter shade is gone, but I love using this as kind of like a forehead highlighter or down my nose, because it is it's a bit kind of deeper than my natural skin tone, but when I put a bronzer on, this pairs really well, and I love using it for that, especially since it creates more of a natural glow rather than a stark white highlighter, which a lot of the regular highlighters that I use end up looking like when I use them in those spots. So yeah, I do really love this. I am probably going to repress this though in the next month, because it's getting to a point now where it's really hard to use with a highlighter brush, and I might mix in a tiny bit of a lighter highlighter in there just to lighten it up a little bit, and hopefully that will make this shade a little bit more versatile for me. But I haven't decided what to do yet, and I probably will create another repressing video for that. And if you feel like it's repetitive, maybe just repressing one shade, let me know down below. But I feel like a lot of people liked my last video, so I might do that again. But obviously if I do end up doing something, you will see that video come up in a few days time, because I will do it before kind of starting measuring usage for next month. So let's talk about my goals for next month. We are on the home stretch of this palette, or at the end of this project, and I feel like this is when I really need to start focusing in on some of the shades if I want to finish them up. I feel like I'm not too worried about finishing off this Franken shade, so I don't want to put a goal on this shade, because I feel like this is something that I will be able to incorporate even if I don't have a goal on it. So my first goal will be to use up, I don't want to say half of this because I know that might be really difficult, but at the same time I feel like I really want to be able to use that up before the end of the year, and I only have 2 months left before the finale of this project. Or actually I did start this project I think at the end of January, so I might continue this on to the end of January too, but I have 2 or 3 months left before the finale of this project, so I feel like I still want to be able to use up as much as is possible, but I'm gonna say a third. And if I use more, that's amazing, but I want to use up as much as possible from this bronzy shade, but minimum a third. And if you look at the kind of what I mean by that is I want to at least finish up this top half and maybe start working on this bottom corner right here. So that's what I want to do with that eyeshadow. The next shade that I want to focus on is this dark shade right here. I've been on a roll using this over the last month, and I want to continue doing that. So I want to clear out this kind of bottom corner right here, so I want to continue using it and get some really good expansion on that pan. And I do want to hit side pan and, like I said, expand that whole corner, so that's going to be my goal for this dark shade right here. Then the next 2 shades we have to work on is one of these 2 here, and I think I'm going to put the goal on this purpley shade again, because when I didn't have a goal on it over the last month, I have been slacking with the shade, and I think with this highlighter shade is something that I will reach for anyway. And yes, it will be a bit more difficult to reach for it when this lighter shade is gone, but I will probably, like I said, Franken in a tiny bit of something lighter in it. So my goal on this one right here is, I don't know if I'm going to be able to kind of hit side pan or anything, but it's gonna, oh, this is so hard, because part of me kind of want to use this enough that it gets to a point where I have to repress it for next updates. That's kind of what the ideal thing would be, but that might be really difficult to do. But I think I'm still gonna say that. I'm just gonna say I want to use this enough so that I have to repress it by next update. That is more of a not very specific goal, but I just really need to get some more use out of this one if I want to be able to finish up before the finale. So those will be my 3 goals for this palette over the next month. But there you guys was my update for my Pan Art palette. I'm really excited about the progress I was able to make over the last month, and I feel like now you're finally able to see the progress that I've been able to do. And I think that by next update I might not have another shade finished yet, but in the next 2 months these 2 will definitely be gone, and I think I will have really decent progress on these 2 in the next 2 months, maybe not completely finished, and same with this one. I think at the end of the year, or when the finale comes around, I might have maybe, because I'm not counting this one anymore, so I might have, I think, 2 shades left of this palette, but I'm hoping that I will at least be able to use up majority of this, especially if I keep this project running until end of January. So I've had a full 12 months to work on this palette. But there you guys, that's all for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have done some Halloween makeup today as well, please let me know what you dressed up as. I think it's just fun to keep the spirit going, as I said, even if you're staying home. And other than that, I hope you're having a really lovely and spooky day, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye guys!